Pastor Crawford. Welcome to the teaching ministry of New Eden. Today we're going to talk about what to do when disaster strikes. What do you do when disaster strikes? Let's pray. Dear God, thank you for the privilege to share with friends one more time, to allow myself to be used in ways that I might be a blessing. We never know what people are going through, so Father, I pray right now in Jesus' name that whatever people are going through, that they will have a visitation from you, and you will deliver them from their challenging situation. I pray today that you might use me to speak in such a way from what you have given me to share, that people will be more prepared and know what to do and how to live through when disaster strikes. I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. All righty, thank you again for joining me. It doesn't take long for us to listen to the news to know that disaster strikes oftentimes without warning. Sometimes when we know that there is a storm approaching, we will get some news report, we'll get some warning, and we'll know to take cover and to protect ourselves. Sometimes we don't get any warning at all of things that are going to happen. And I think about the children who died at Sandy Hook Elementary School. I think of the people who died at the Boston bombing, at the marathon. I think there was no way people could be prepared for that. And yet, in spite of not knowing when things are happening or going to happen, the best plan for us is to be able to prepare as much as possible before disaster strikes. All right? Okay, so I want to begin with reading a text. And this text comes from the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 24, and verses 6 through 8. And it will sound a little bit about the kinds of things I'm talking to you about already. It really talks about disaster. And I want you to listen to the things that you hear, because I'm going to draw attention to a couple of things that I want you really to think about. All right, Matthew 24, verses 6 through 8. And you shall hear of wars and rumors of war. See that you are not troubled, for all these things are going to happen. They're going to come to pass. But the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against a nation. Many other things you could pack into that. Families will rise against other families, and communities will rise against other communities. Cultures and races and religious groups will attack each other. So nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines. You know, there are a lot of places on planet Earth where people are really, really doing without enough food to eat to survive. And there shall be pestilences, and there shall be earthquakes in places across planet Earth. And all these are the beginnings of sorrow. All right, now, listen, let me tell you what some of this is inferring to us, and we can begin our conversation there. When we look at nation rising against nation, that is no big deal to see happening all the time. I mean, you look at the Middle East, and the Middle East seems to always be inflamed over religious point of view, over which descendant of Abraham Israel and Palestine belong to, Arabs against Israelis. I mean, we see that all the time. I mean, we've seen it here in America a lot. You might even call these now the cultural wars. I mean, there is that polite war that goes on between the genders. There's that polite war that's going on within the genders. And there's the polite war that's going on between the races. And there's the polite war going on between those who have and those who do not have. And so we have these kinds of internal clashes going on all the time. And yet the word says to us, don't let this trouble you. How in the world could you not be troubled when things all seem to be going wrong? When disaster seems to be striking all around. Now, listen, I wanted to make a note to actually give you a literal definition of a disaster. And a disaster seems to be a sudden calamity or calamitous event bringing great damage, loss, and destruction. Now, certainly all disasters are not created equal. What may be a disaster for you may not be a disaster for me. You know, I may go off the deep end if one of my loved ones dies. I may go off the deep end. That may seem disaster and disastrous for me, and I don't know what I will do. But for others, it may take something as large as a nuclear weapon going off on a nation and killing millions of people. I mean, that would be a disaster as well. Certainly, we've seen our share of disasters in Oklahoma with tornadoes, and it's inconceivable to think of a tornado 2 miles wide on the ground running rampant and destroying everything in its wake. But we also have fires going on in Colorado, and there will be fires this year in Arizona and in California. There are fires every year. These are disastrous events, and the goal is to limit the loss of resource, property, and life, even though many are lost every year to these kinds of disasters. So they're not just disasters going on in America. There are typhoons that have hit India and destroyed a church that I'll be giving you a special edition message on soon, because some friends and I are gathering ourselves together to help a congregation restore its facility in a recent typhoon. Tornado that begins over water and comes inland. Typhoon destroyed the church of people who really essentially live in poverty all the time, but this natural disaster has destroyed the place where they worship. And so friends and I are going to be getting together and inviting you to share with us on the 29th of June. We want people across the planet to give $1 or whatever the equivalent of $1 is in your currency, to give $1 to the fund that is already established to help this congregation in India rebuild. Now, listen, you think disaster is always going to take place someplace else? Disaster is one day going to come to your neighborhood, to your house, to your living experience. You may have a disaster in your body, and you're going to want some help at some point. Now, listen, here's a text that I often share with people from Matthew chapter 5 when we talk about who we're responsible to give to and to love and to help. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 5, if you only love the people who love you, what good are you? You are expected and supposed to and responsible to do that. But those who would go the extra mile and demonstrate real love in practice, those are those of us who give beyond the taking care of our own. Are you listening to me? One of the things I said in a church recently is that men who would be men after the heart of God and living the model of Jesus, you have to be responsible for more families than your own. Are you hearing me? You're going to have men, husbands of one wife. You're going to have to husband some other women. Now listen to what I'm not saying. I'm not encouraging you to go have sex with a number of other women. That is not what I'm talking about at all. I'm talking about women who are living with children and have no male provider or male symbol in their household. You're going to need to step to the plate and help out some where a man would have some responsibilities. Not to some intimate relationship, no, but to be a friend of the family, to the woman and her children. Women, you may do some of that thing with men just in the reciprocal. But if we only take care of those we are responsible for, there's nothing praiseworthy about doing what you're supposed to do. Are you hearing me? All right, so disasters are taking place in Colorado and in Oklahoma, India, earthquakes in Asia, the violence in Boston, shootings. Man, are you tired of hearing about people getting shot all over the country? Some, please forgive me if you need to, but some fool shows up with a gun whose feelings have been hurt over the loss of love or a job, or they're just mentally ill, but they're smart enough that they can pack and prepare guns to go and kill a number of people. Something's wrong with that picture. Those are disastrous events, and we have to be prepared to deal with them before they show up. Now, let's look back at the text for a moment. You saw there where it says, when you see all these things coming, don't be troubled, because all these things must come to pass. Now, here's the equivalent of what this text is teaching us. The text is suggesting to us that this condition is similar to a woman who is pregnant. And so when you first begin to feel your baby, ladies, I don't know about this. I've been around a few of you when you were pregnant, and I've witnessed babies move inside you, and you say, hey, look at my stomach, feel this. I've been around that. I don't know this experience, but I have shared it as close as a man can. And so in this text, it is suggested to us that the symbolism for the text is of a woman who is pregnant, and her child starts to move inside of her, and that's indicative of there's life inside of her, and it is a sign of things that are yet to come but are not yet. I hope you hear me. Okay, so a woman's pregnant. Her baby has begun to move inside of her. That life that we have been aware of is growing there, is now giving signs of being there. And eventually, when the pregnancy comes to term, a child will come forth. So it is suggested to us when we see all these disastrous things happening, it is really the signs of birth getting ready to take place. But there's no end. There's no end in this. So you got to be ready to live through it. Be able to encourage yourself and others that good will come to resolve your challenging situations. You just have to hold tight and don't do anything stupid. That's not psychological. That's just good sense. You hold tight, do your best to maintain, and don't do anything stupid. Now, one of the things you might do on the front side, in order to be prepared for disasters, you might have your emergency food box ready. You might have, if you can possibly do this, have some emergency cash ready. You might have flashlights and matches, those kinds of things. You might have an extra change of clothes that you can pack in a bag and some canned food or packaged food that you can carry in a backpack that won't weigh 1,000 pounds that you can carry with you. Now, you can't prepare to do water as much as you're going to need to, but you can prepare to carry a few bottles of water in your backpack in your emergency rationing. And you ought also to learn how to defend yourself. I'm going to put a link up today. It's a lesson that my daughters, when I was a single father, my daughters and I, we worked this out. I found it important enough to be able to protect my family. That what do we do if some person walks into a room and only the 4 of us are in, and they've got a gun and they declare they're going to shoot everybody? How do we prevent all of us getting killed? Well, we decided a long time ago that one of us is going to die. One of us is very likely going to die because we're going to be the one that attacks the person with the gun. And the second one will likely get wounded, but the other 2 are to kill the person, kill it, dead. Knockout, we're not really concerned about that. We're concerned about stopping this person from harming us any further, and we have a plan. Is it a good plan? No plan is good if you got to die for it, but it may be necessary for somebody to die for the rest to live. Are you hearing me today? What to do when disaster strikes. First thing you need not to do is do something stupid. Don't do anything stupid. Don't never do anything stupid to make a bad matter worse. I hope you hear me today. The next thing you want to do is you want to get with other people who are having to respond to the same conditions so that you might organize your strength together that would be beneficial for everyone affected by the disaster. I have friends. A woman in Colorado named Tila Tankersley. That sister has been working her heart out all week with churches and organizations trying to help people meet their needs while they're living with fires on 3 sides. I sent out a note earlier this week that talked about there was a fire to the east. Now, if I was an old black preacher who did it traditional way, I'd say fire to the east and fire to the north. But listen, there were fires surrounding this community for miles, and the only place that wasn't affected was to the west. Now, where do you think everybody was going to try to go? You have to have a strategy for responding to disasters before disaster strikes. It's kind of a bad time to say, what are we going to do? Well, you have to plan for bad times while good times exist. Are you hearing me? My father used to tell a joke. Maybe it wasn't so much as a joke as a fable. When I was a child, he used to talk about families would always put aside some meat and some food and save them for hard times. And literally they were trying to teach the example of you want to always be ready when times come that you don't have as much as you want to, but you've got something to fall back on and to lean back on. Well, the children of this particular family knew about the hard time supply, and one day somebody knocked at the door, and when they asked who it was, the person said, hard time. Well, these children knew that things had been put up for hard times, so they went and got everything that had been saved for hard times and gave it to the person knocking at the door. I hope you're hearing me, right? So here we are. If we're going to learn how to respond to disasters, we need to plan for them as much ahead of time as is possible. If we don't do that, we need to have a fallback strategy for how we will get together with other people so that we can organize our strengths together, that we might help each other through the immediate crisis and get everybody stabilized through it, and then plan what we will together do next. I hope you're hearing me. You cannot afford to live life as if every day is going to be okay. If you've never had a disaster, trust me, one is coming to you sometime or other in your life. If not you, to one of your loved ones, to some of your friends, you're going to have to be ready and prepared to respond and know what to do when disaster strikes. All right, so there are these kinds of disasters that we're dealing with all the time. There are these natural disasters that are considered acts of God. Now, if you believe and hold God accountable for everything that happens, you could have an attitude with God for all of your life, the rest of your life. Are you listening to me? I am not one who particularly believes that God kills children before they're born. I don't accept that. There's a lot of room for lots of conversation. But your friend, your brother right here talking to you right now, does not believe God sits aside, has nothing better to do than send a tornado to kill people, or a hurricane to kill people, or an earthquake to kill people. I don't believe that for a minute. I believe these are some natural environmental conditions that are the natural process of growth and aging and development to a planet and a people, and we have to develop ourselves sufficiently to be able to, listen to me, roll with the punch. We didn't create creation, but we live in it. We are responsible for it, and we can't blame others or God for the bad things that happen. We have to be responsible to manage as appropriately as we can. I hope somebody out there is hearing me today. Because a disaster has not yet found you, don't give up. Your turn is coming. You are blessed every day that you don't have to experience a disaster. But listen to what Jesus has said. He said, look, when you see all these things going on around you, don't let that mess you up. These are just signs of things that are to come. These are signs of things that are to come. There's going to be a baby born after a while. After all the baby movement and 9 months has passed and it's time for a baby to be born, there's going to be some serious, intense struggle and pain of the delivering woman to bring that child forth into the world. These things are not easy. They are life. And so when a woman is pregnant and mated or not, she goes through a process through which someone will guide her through her experience. Now, if you're like me, I've been through it through 2 generations, and I'm getting ready to close. I could get excited and stay here all day. But I was there with my children's mother, and I was there with my children. I got to tell you, it shocked me when my children wanted me to be present while they were giving birth. They had daughters now. Daughters. They had husbands. I was in the delivery room with them and their husbands. I was there because my daughters wanted me. There's something going on between my daughters and myself that God has given us, that we give each other comfort. So when my daughters were pregnant and delivering children, they wanted daddy there. I ain't telling you I was excited about that. I was not. I wasn't really excited about doing it with their mother, but I was responsible for the creation of children, and this was our negotiated relational context that when it came time for delivery, she wasn't going in there by herself. I went. I was there present for every one of my children's births. I was there. I held my children before their mama did. Listen to me. We must plan for war in times of peace. We must also plan for peace during times of war. If we would become responsible and intelligent, we're going to have to do these kinds of things. Now, that's not the only kind of disaster that you'll have to deal with. We are living in a time where we never know where the next act of terrorism is going to take place. An act of terrorism can be an individual or a collective event. If you're a woman or a man who gets raped or violated or experience an act of violence, that's an act of disaster for you. It is an act of violence. Now, we encourage women and men all the time, do what you need to do to protect yourself. That means buy a gun, buy a gun. In Arizona, anybody over 18 can have a gun, can buy one. It's just the law. And as much debate as is going on over amendment rights on who may have guns and who may not, in America, it's a privilege to own and carry a gun. There are some licensure requirements in some jurisdictions, and you need to be aware of those. But if you need to have a gun to feel safe and protected, to protect you and your family and your interests, get a gun. Not saying be stupid, saying be mature and responsible to protect your interests and your family and those in your environment. Are you hearing what I'm saying to you? All right, so we live through acts of violence. We live through natural disasters. And look, disaster to you could mean you just came home with a diagnosis of cancer of the cervix or the prostate. Are you listening to me? Cancer shows up in human bodies everywhere there is an opportunity to. So a disaster for you may be a diagnosis in some really trying or terminal context. So we have to be prepared to ride that out, and we sure enough need people to help us go through those experiences. I hope you're hearing me. All right. Disease and poverty. As quiet as it's kept, we don't talk enough about what other people need. People need us and we need other people. People need us and we need other people. We are designed to be connectionally oriented, relationally connected. We are designed to give and minister and love each other to wholeness as much as is in our power. Spouses certainly should be doing that, and families should be doing that. How many times do you hear about families being in conflict where people just don't love each other? That is inconceivable to me, but I understand it. We all got issues. We all got issues. And if we don't manage our issues, we could wind up in some serious conflict with people we care a lot about. All right. So other things could be unemployment. If you've just lost your job and your house payment, and your car payment, and your livelihood is dependent upon that job, that is sure enough a disaster for you. Bankruptcy could be a disaster for you. Divorce could be a disaster for you. Death of a loved one could be a disaster for you. The time to be preparing for how to respond, to know what to do when disaster strikes, is not when the disaster strikes. It's before the disaster arrives. All right. Now, as I said to you, I'm finished with the lesson. I did say to you earlier, and I say to you again now, friends and I, across as many continents and nations as we can make connections in, we're going to be inviting you, urging you to, almost begging you to think about. We're not telling you what to do. We don't control you. You're an adult. Privilege of being an adult is never having to do anything you don't want to do. But I implore you, I'm going to beg you, we want to influence others to give $1. $1. If a dollar is going to kill you or really hurt your family, I will give you your dollar back. Now, I don't mean that for 100,000 people, but I mean people who have a desire to give $1. Tell me, and I'll do my best to give $1 in your name. If it's just something your really heart feels. But most of us who live in America, most of us, and if you have access to the internet, you see $1 every now and then. I'm asking you to prepare to give $1. Prepare to give $1 to a fund that will be presented to you that will help restore a church destroyed by a typhoon in India. Thank you for joining me one more time. I pray God's blessings be upon you in Jesus' name, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.